This is exercise 2-8, creating an in-place mass. So this is kind of like using SketchUp, but in Revit, and it helps you to plan out the massing of your building. So you may not have a building design in mind yet, but you know kind of the form that you want it to be or the height you want it to be. So you can use this to place the massing on a site or placing some buildings massings next to each other just to see the relationships of how these buildings are working together. So let's get started. We're going to go to Open. From our Revit exercise file, we're going to look for inplaceMass.rvt. So the RVT means it's a Revit file. This .rfa actually means it's a family file, just in case you see that, right? And families are different. They're not project files. RVT is a project file, so we're going to say Open. We're going to activate the site plan, so we're going to double click on the site plan. Now what this is these are model lines, so these are just single lines drawn in Revit, and somebody's trying to get an idea about, it looks like a city block and how these buildings would be set up. But right now, this is all flat. So we want to raise up those building heights so that we can see how they work in relationship with each other. So we're going to double click on Site Plan, and we're going to activate the Massing and Site ribbon tab. So from this, we're going to select In Place Mass tool from the Conceptual Mass. So In Place Mass. And then Revit displays this message indicating that visibility of masses has been turned on. Okay, so we can just say, okay, that's good, close. And the first one we're going to do is Building 1. And we're going to say, okay. Okay, from the Draw panel, we're going to select the Pick Lines tool, and we are going to pick the lines for the building in the upper right quadrant, so this up here. So we're going to just pick all these lines. And then when you select the sketch, so now when I select it, I actually didn't pick, I need to pick one more line, there we go. So now when I select it, you should see that everything's a closed boundary. We want to make sure that there's no overlapping lines. It doesn't look like there are, so we're going to switch to 3D view. We see the outline of the building. We're going to select the sketch, and switching to 3D allowed me to see the outline of the building a little bit clearer. And we're going to select Form, Create Form, a Solid Form. Okay, so now you see that it popped that building up so that it has a height, and it looks like the height is about 40 feet. So we're going to switch to the east elevation, and we can see this building. There are two dimensions. So the bottom dimension right here, this is displaying the overall height of the mass, so the mass is 40 feet, and the top dimension displays the distance from the top of the mass to the level above it. So that means that there's more levels in this drawing. Okay, so from this level lines, these levels right here, so from the top of this building, 40 feet, to the next level line is 8 feet. We're going to click on the bottom dimension, which is controlling the height of the mass, and we're going to type 70 feet and then hit enter. And then we're just going to click off of that, and we're going to click on Finish Mass. We're going to go back to the site plan view. Now we're going to activate the Massing and Site ribbon again. We're going to do In Place Mass, and this is going to be Building 2. We're going to say OK. We're going to use the Pick Line tool, and we are going to pick the lines for the building in the upper right quadrant, this small little building right here. Okay, so once we have those selected, you can click off of it. You can see now that I've selected the whole thing, and make sure there's no overlapping lines. We're going to go back to 3D. It's a little bit easier to do this in 3D. We're going to click on the boundary, and we're going to do Create Form, a Solid Form. And now we're going to select the blue Z-axis. So this is going to control that height again. And we're going to drag the building up until it reads 70 feet, which is going to be hard to do. So I'm going to drag it a little bit just so you can see that, but then I'm going to click on the dimension and type 70 feet. All right, and make sure that you show these dimensions in your screen captures. And you might need to get a little bit closer because see, like that one I can't really read, but if you get a little bit closer, you can see the 70 feet. So make sure your captures are nice and clear. Okay, we're going to finish the mass, and then we're going to go back to the site plan. And then we're going to activate the in-place mass tool again. Oops, excuse me, the in-place mass right here. And we're going to call this building 3. And we're going to use the pick lines tool. And we're going to pick the lines around in the upper left-hand quadrant. Okay. Click off of that. I do have a closed mass. We're going to go back to the 3D view. Click on the boundary line, create a solid form, and then we want to type here 82 feet and hit enter. And then remember, just when you show me that dimension for the mass, make sure you get kind of nice and close to it. You might even want to highlight the 82. Okay, so for the next part, it says to select the inner sketch, which I never did. So I clicked back on my model. Well, here, let me show you. I clicked back on it. 3D, and I said edit in place, and then I looked at it on the site plan, and then I went back and I want to draw this mass around here. Okay, so then I'll go back to the 3D view. So now I have this mass right here. The only problem is that it's starting from 82 feet because its host is now this box instead of the floor. So I can host it from level 1, which then pushes it back down. Okay, so now I'm going to create a form, and I'm going to create a solid form from that, and I want that to be, let's see, it says 82 feet as well. So I'm going to type 82 feet, and now I have that inner form. Now I can finish that mass as well. And if these are a little hard to read, you can always change them to hidden line view or to shaded view if you're trying to just be able to see a little bit more definition in the shape. Okay, go back to the site plan, activate the massing and site ribbon again. I think you guys are getting the hang of this. In place mass, this is going to be building 4. We're going to say okay, we're going to select the pick lines tool, and now we are picking the lines for this building right down here, so we're going all the way around the building. I made a little boo-boo there. Let me fix that. So I still need to pick a line. Okay. So make sure you have your form is a complete sketch and everything's connected. It looks like we also need to add this part here, so we'll do pick lines here. And this is going to require us to use some of those trimming tools, because as you can see, these are 2 separate forms, but they need to be one single boundary. So we are going to use the trim tool, and we can click on this, and it will allow us to have a trim here. I like to use the split tool first, so I can split this line, and then I like to use this corner trim, and you select the objects you want to keep, so we'll trim that line, and then it should trim out. I can delete that piece. So now when I click on it, it's one single boundary for that whole building. We're going to switch to 3D view. We're going to click on the sketch. We're going to create a form, a solid form, and we want this building to be 94 feet. And you see, hit enter. So now you can start to see how the relationships between the building heights here. And then we're going to select finish mass. Okay, let's see if we can get this a little bit better. Yeah, I think I like the shading is a little bit easier to read to me. There we go. And make sure again that you take that dimension with the 94 feet. All right, we'll go back to the site plan, and then last we are going to make one more massing and site in place mass, and these are going to be called towers. Say okay, and then we're going to select the rectangle tool, so something a little bit different here, and we're going to select the rectangles. And then we're going to switch to 3D view. And I'm going to hit modify. I'm going to click on the rectangles. And we're going to create the form, solid form. Pull those up. And this is to be 106. So 106 feet, hit enter, take a screen capture of that. We'll click on the next one here. This one's also 106 feet. So create form, solid form. Pull that up a little bit, 106 feet, enter. Click on this, solid form. Pull this up just a little bit, and 106 feet, and enter. Okay, so I have 3 towers that are 106 feet. And we're going to say finish. Then we go back to the site plan. One more massing in sight, mass in place. This is going to be building 5. We're going to say okay. Pick lines, and we are going to select the outline of this building shape right here. Alright, so now you're going to have to do some trim work, because as you can see, it's pulling the lines up way too far. So now if I click on this, see how it's all these lines go up? So I'm going to click on the line. I'm going to have to trim them. So we'll click what I want to keep. What I want to keep. Okay. And now I should have a completed shape. I hope. It looks like it. You can look at it in 3D to see for sure. Okay, it appears I have a completed shape. I also want to select the rectangles in the inside. I'm just going to use the rectangle tool. Go back to 3D. And I'm going to do click on this outline, create a form. Oh, it didn't create a solid shape. So let's see why it did that. Undo, back to the site plan. Something must not be quite connected. So I'm not sure what it is, but we have to try to connect these pieces here. And it could be that they're on different planes. I'm actually going to try to pick them in the view here. Yeah, the 3D view, which makes it a little bit easier because now I can see those are selected, and I'm going to draw a line that connects these two. Nope, doesn't want to do it. I'll do pick lines, and then I'm going to trim right in here. I thought I did this, but sometimes it gets strange. Okay, there, I think I see it now. So finish mass. Oh, yeah, I put the lines up here. See what happened? I see. We don't want these. Delete those. Somehow they got attached. Finish mass. There we go. Oh, and actually, I need to trim this one too. So this is quite the pickle we're in. Alright, I think this is one finished. Yeah, create form, solid form. There we go. And then it says this should be at 34 feet high. And then these should be at 34 feet high. So let's go create form, solid form. And that should be 34 feet. And then the other one should also be create form, solid form. That should also be 34 feet. Okay, so now after you finish your mass, you'll see you have a little city. And this would help you if you were doing planning for multiple buildings or just even one building.